Hey everyone, it's Kat, and I'm back to you today with another decoding. This one is on the Georgia Guidestones. Most of you are familiar with the Georgia Guidestones. For those of you who aren't, this was a monument erected on rural farmland in Elbert County, Georgia, on March 22, 1980, by a man who signed his name as R.C. Christian. The Guidestones were in the news recently because they were blown up. The media would like us to believe that this was done by some sort of right-wing group. But is that true? It's amazing how only one pillar got blown up. You would think they would make sure to blow up the whole thing. To determine what the truth is, we need to take a closer look at all the facts. Remember that with these secret societies, they give two meanings, one for the adept, them, and one for the profane, the general public. The adept interpretation would be the esoteric meaning, and the profane interpretation would be the exoteric meaning. We will be looking at that adept's esoteric meaning here. Everything they do is for a purpose. They picked this exact spot to erect this monument because it fits with their codings. The monument was built just north of the 33rd degree latitude line. Athens, Georgia is just to the southwest of the stones, and they are at 33 degrees. Athens, in the Orinda book, was where Athena Minerva set up a just government. How far we've fallen since. We know that 33 is one of their most important numbers. To become a full-blown Mason, you have to complete the 32 degrees, and then only by invitation can you become a 33rd degree Mason, where all the true esoteric knowledge is given. Manly P. Hall was one of the fellows that became an honorary 33rd degree Freemason. And here's a quote from him. He says, "When the Mason learns that the key is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mystery of his craft. The seething energies of Lucifer are in his hands. Many things coincide with the 33, such as 33 vertebrae in the spine, with the head illuminated, sitting on top where knowledge is kept. Also the 33rd degree melting point of water, where if you go below, everything is frozen. Once you hit 33, everything melts, everything is revealed. Their illuminated Christ at 33 years of age. When you reach the 33rd degree, you become a Master Mason, an MM, like Judge Luther A. Smith here, who served as the Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite in the Southern Jurisdiction from 1955 until 1969. MM, if you turn them one turn to the right, makes 33 visually. Put those two triangles together, turning one upside down, and you get their Star of David. See right here on his lapel? And their Star of David, Remphan, is made up of two triangles with three sides each. So you get your 33 there. And you can see two of them over the door above the Masonic initiate here. We found out that the pillar that was blown up happened at exactly 4:03 and 33 seconds. So you can see in this picture, 4:03 and 32 seconds, nothing. 4:03 and 33 seconds, just 1 second later, and it blows up. And if we look at who reported on this event, we find more clues. The spokesman for the group behind the monument is named Christopher Kuvas. If we look up the etymology and meaning behind the name Kuvas, we find out it's Hungarian. From the Orinda book, we learned that the Magi split into two groups. One went to Finland, Findaland, and one went to Hungary. Also, the meaning of Kuvas is bodyguard or doorkeeper. So Christopher, or Christian, is the gatekeeper telling us what's going on with the Guidestones. How ironic. Christ, gatekeeper, is what his name is. we see that the monument was erected in Georgia. Why Georgia? If we look up the etymology of Georgia, we find that it is the feminine name for farmer. The Frians were the original farmers, but we know that they take what is ours and use it for their nefarious purposes. So we know that a few hundred years ago, the most famous banking family, the Rothschilds, weren't always called that. Their original name was Bauer, which means farmer in German. Like the monuments being put in Georgia to mark their Rothschild connection, we see this girl in the red dress used symbolically for the Rothschilds as well. When she comes up in movies, it shows the Rothschild connection to those movies, like in their propaganda movie Schindler's List, which was actually a work of fiction that they made appear as fact. And the Matrix series are good examples of this. We also see the hidden hand being displayed front and center. They are the hidden hand controlling the world. Philippine de Rothschild also loves to wear her Baphomet pendant. We also need to note here that one of their most famous and despicable Masonic members was the Russian leader Joseph Stalin, who hails from Georgia in Eastern Europe. So another Georgia connection. Here he is with Prime Minister Winston Churchill and President Franklin D. Roosevelt. All three were Masons. And if we look at the county the Guidestones were built in, Elbert, we find that it was originally an ancient Anglo-Saxon name which meant noble or bright. We know that a synonym for bright would be illuminated. So Elbert is another way to say illuminated in their coding. Of course, Elbert is a good Frian name, but like we said, they take what is good of ours and use it for bad. So we have Georgia, farmer, Rothschild, and we have Elbert illuminated. So Elbert, Georgia is illuminated farmer. Now if we look at the name for the stones, Georgia Guidestones, we see something else. We know they like to code in alliteration, like Master Mason, and they are doing this here as well. The G is the 7th letter in the alphabet, and 2 G's would be 77. 77 is code for Aleister Crowley's Do As Thou Will philosophy. And if you notice here on the front of this book of his, it says 777 in other Kabbalistic writings, the Kabbalah, the Kabbalah. And if we look on the Google map, we see that just to the left of the Guidestones is Highway 77. This is for their 777, Kabbalah. We see something else too. They are called guide stones. They like to use the word stone as a last name, such as Albert Einstein, one stone, Oliver Stone, Gloria Steinem, stone them, Whitney Houston, Hugh Stone, are just some examples. We have King Arthur's sword and the stone. The sword would represent the Frians. German, 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 literally means sword man. The sword makes a cross symbol, and the stone would make a circle. When illiterate people had to sign a contract, Frians used an X, a cross, and the Jews would use an O, circle. Now if we look at the date the monument was officially completed on March 22nd, 1980, we see some interesting clues. Of course, March 22nd can be written in the American style as 322. We know 322 is the number for Skull and Bones. Several of the more famous Skull and Bones members are George Bush Sr. and Jr., as well as Senator Jim Carrey. We remember the famous chat with Tim Russert, where he asked both Jim Carrey and George Bush if they were members of Skull and Bones, and what that meant to America. They replied that they can't say. Tim Russert died mysteriously on June 13, 2008, just a few days later. And what is George Bush Jr.'s birthday? July 6, 1946, which happens to be the exact day, July 6, 2022, that the English pillar was blown up. Remember, too, that George means farmer. Are we getting bushwhacked here? Bush Sr. is showing us that he sees with his left eye by squinting his right. He follows the sinister path. Notice too, he is only showing us one hand. The other is hidden, doing the hidden hand. Also in the date, March 22nd, 1980, we have the 22. 22 is the Fool card in the tarot deck, the card of Lucifer, who is the Fool, completing the journey on Worlda's wheel and then doing it all over again. So another way to pay homage to their beliefs. Notice the O at the top. 0, yes, but can also be representative of the O, the circle. Like I mentioned earlier, the Jews signed with an O. O, of course, is also short for Omega, from Alpha to Omega, the end, the symbol for the moon. He's dressed as a he/she here, a Baphomet, and holding a white rose. He's standing on a cut tree, and we see the ice rim behind him. The dog symbolizes God backwards, since they believe in the inverse of God. Morals and dogma, ma'am, right? And dogma backwards is am God. Now, the mysterious man who had the stones erected signed his name R.C. Christian, and we can see that phonetically that sounds very similar to Rosicrucian. Who were the Rosicrucians? A super secret sect above the Masons that, like the 33rd degree, you can only become a member of if you were invited. Here we have a Rosicrucian Masonic apron. We do see Christian in the name, although many public opposition groups say the pillars are satanic. It seems like that would be like speaking out of both sides of your mouth. How can a Christian make a satanic monument? Notice Rosicrucian is tied to the Kabbalah, and the Kabbalah is tied to Judaism, one of the 3 Abrahamic religions. And remember the noose around the initiate's neck? That is a cable or cabal showing their connection to the Kabbalah. The same cable is around the necks of the man and the woman on the Tarot Devil card. This loose cable represents free will. These people freely choose the left-hand path. R.C. Christian, R, is the 18th letter in the alphabet, and if we take it to its root, we get 1 + 8 = 9. C is the 3rd letter, so together we get 93. 93 stands for Aleister Crowley's Thelema, so R.C. Christian would be a Thelema Christian. Thelema's main philosophy is, do as thou will is the whole of the law, putting man above God. And you can even see here their symbol. This is a Star of David, right? They just squish it. Then it says, sponsors a small group of Americans who seek the age of reason. Now I find it quite ironic that I just made a presentation on this book by one of the founding fathers, Thomas Paine. The Age of Reason is all about how Christianity is a false religion. He goes through the Bible and uses it against itself to prove his point, and that man, through reason, can figure out what the true religion of God is through his word, which is nature. If we look to see what the tenets are for their Age of Reason, they do coincide with a deistic belief in God. Let's go through them. 1. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Now, as I've said, they take the good, what should be, and invert it, use it for bad. It would be good to maintain humanity under 500 million people in perpetual balance with nature. But we know they have a depopulation agenda going on right now. Through their shots, many people are getting extremely ill. Many now have ongoing medical conditions, and many have died. There is no relief in sight because we see they are going to persist with this program until their goal is met. Now, if we followed God's natural law, then we would have left each race to fend for themselves. If Ryans didn't give food, clean water, sanitation systems, healthcare to other countries, then those countries would naturally stay small in population. But with our kindness, these populations exploded and came to Fryan lands. Now we are in such small numbers we can be totally overrun and wiped out. So the tenet is how it should be if we followed natural law and would be a tenet of deism. 2. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. If we followed natural law, then we would be reproducing in family units. We wouldn't be having promiscuous sex outside of marriage. We would also follow God's law of kind after kind. When mixing races, we suffer genetic defects. Improving fitness is exactly what Hitler did with his people. He made this a priority, including a healthy diet. Look at Americans today. The opposite is true. The majority are neither fit nor healthy. And where diversity is concerned, diversity is what we have when we don't mix races, when we don't mix species. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different types of birds. When we mix animals or humans, we produce less diversity. The New World Order is all about making us one mutt race. No more whites, blacks, browns, just one race with the same hair, same eyes, same everything. But when we don't mix race, and we work to make our races stronger by health and diet, we improve diversity. So this would be a tenet of deism as well. 3. Unite humanity with a living new language. Now if we look to the Oralinda book, we see that the 3 races did start with a universal language. It was Waralda's language, and in which you couldn't lie without being caught. When speaking a lie, you would blush, and everyone would know you were trying to be deceptive. So evil people devised languages of their own so they could hide their true intentions. This is different from the Tower of Babel, where their Bible says that God divided the languages. This is not true. Evil men divided the languages. So going back to Waralda's language would be a tenet of deism. 4. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. In the Oralinda book, we learned that our first mother, Freya, was born from tempered heat, while Lyda was glowing and Finda was hot. Tempered heat, staying calm and collected and figuring out issues without rashness, is the way of the deist. From the Oralinda book we read, after the 12th Yule festival, she, Earth, gave birth to 3 maidens. Lyda, out of glowing, came first. Finda, out of hot, came second. And Freya, out of warm dust, came last. When the last came, Waralda breathed his spirit upon her, Freya, in order that men should be bound to him. Fasta. 5. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. This tenet is what we had all the way back to the Oralinda book. It is only now, with our courts corrupted by Masons and their minions, that we don't get justice and fair laws. In addition, our courts are swamped by cases that never would be there if each race lived in the lands provided by them from God. We are meant to live in our particular zoological zones. If this was the case, our courts could run very efficiently. Common law is what we used to have because it looks at resolution case by case and doesn't make one law for all that doesn't fit and is unjust in many circumstances. 6. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. In the Orlinda book, we learn that the 12 tribes of Freya lived separately but united under a federation. This Fryan federation had a head burg matron that all the tribes could come to settle disputes. A world court would be a Woralda court. World is the creation of Woralda. Unfortunately, the world court that the Luciferian Masonic Jewish world order has in mind doesn't have the people's best interests at heart. So this was a deistic ideal originally and could be again if we remove the evil from power. Athena with Phryon's sword and the scales of justice. Woralda, world. 7. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. People elected to office should be the most upstanding citizens of our nations, yet they are the least upstanding. They care not for the community, but only in lining their own pocketbooks and their own self-interests. They make petty laws at the whim of the ones who can pay the highest behind the scenes, to the detriment of the citizens. An example of this would be when Lyndon Johnson passed a law which allowed non-Fryans to immigrate to America, violating God's law of kind after kind. Now Fryans are the minority in their own country. And yes, the minority. Numbers are skewed to hide this fact by putting Findans such as Hispanics and Arabs down as white, Bryan. 8. Balance personal rights with social duty. Balancing personal rights with social duties is that forbidden word, fascism. So many people in the Way community are still brainwashed into thinking this is a bad thing. Fascism coincides with natural law, putting the tribe first, not the individual, which would be capitalism. Hitler turned Germany around through fascism, while the rest of the world was suffering under the Great Depression. Germany thrived and its people were never happier. With fascism, the government serves the people. The folk comes first. With the folk healthy and happy, this trickles down to the individual. This is the proper order of things and is deistic. 9. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. We are in such an inverse world today that liars are idolized and the true and the brave are behind bars, like what happened to Rudolf Hess and what is happening to Alfred Schaeffer. True beauty is natural beauty, but instead today we have dyed hair, fake lips and eyelashes, breast implants, pumped up behinds, fake tans, and on and on. Harmony would be found in nature, yet less and less people seek nature. They purposefully make nature a scary place by planting stories of people dying if they swim in the water, drink the water, venture out on their own. This is a tenet of deism if done by natural law. 10. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. We are a cancer on this earth at the moment. We destroy the rainforests, pollute the air, throw garbage into the rivers and streams. If we look to see who is doing the most damage in this area, we see it is not Fryan countries though. It is Findan and Leiden countries. China is so badly polluted, you have to go outside with the mask on just to breathe the air. In Mexico, there are signs all along the highway that read, "No tire la basura," which means no throwing trash. Yet all along these signs and the highway are piles of trash as far as the eyes can see. We do need to love and respect God's creation and take care of it. It is our duty and would be a tenet of deism. So these should be our 10 commandments, but Fryans never needed God's natural laws to be written down. They always knew right from wrong. It is written on our hearts. From the Orlinda book we read, the word Eva is too sacred for common use. Therefore men have learned to say Evan. Eva means that knowledge which is implanted in the breast of every man in order that he may know what is right and wrong, and by which he is able to judge his own deeds and those of others. That is to say, if he had been well and not badly brought up. So why write them down? Because these are what we really should be doing. But they want us to believe these are satanic and anti the Bible. But if we know that the Bible is their book and used to control us, we would break this association and realize that being anti-Christ, anti-Bible, doesn't mean we are satanic. It just means we are not Christian. We are pro-God and His creation. That is a good thing. So since they are not pro-God and His creation, and they are crafting a world of their own, with them being gods with a little g, they want to blow up the pillar of God's laws. And the ones that carry God's laws in their hearts are the Friends. So of course they blow up the English pillar. These are the people who they are trying to remove from this earth, so they can make their own laws, their own morals, and truly do as thou will. This pillar that they destroyed too was the northern pillar. Remember that the Masons worship the east, west, and south, but never the north. Why? Because the lands of the north are the lands of the Friends. So they blow this pillar up in a symbolic ceremony, showing what they are attempting to do to us in our lands. Notice too the Friend connection with Stonehenge. The guide stones are called the American Stonehenge. Stonehenge was built by Friends to track the solstices and their movements. We see with the American version they have it set up to do a similar thing. Astronomic features of the Georgia Guidestones. 1. Channel through stone indicates celestial pole. 2. Horizontal slot indicates annual travel of the sun. 3. Sunbeam through capstone marks noontime throughout the year. So then they blow it up. They could have rebuilt the one pillar, but no, that wasn't their plan. Their plan was to take it down altogether. After demolishing the Friend pillar, what is next? Erecting one pillar in its place in LGBTQ brown and black colors? I wouldn't be surprised. Like they blew up the Twin Towers and made the One World Trade Center, right? And next, they will blow up the Statue of Liberty, which shows a Fryenberg matron holding the perpetual flame. That flame went out a long time ago, but is still remembered through the Olympic torch lighting ceremony and that statue overlooking the harbor in New York City. So we can see that it wasn't a right-wing group that blew up the pillar, but actually them, the builders of the monument, for their ritualistic purposes against us. And who are they? It should be clear from the evidence uncovered in this presentation.